Why he can't choose you, even when he loves you. Carl Jung. Have you ever felt like you were the right person at the wrong time? Have you ever lived that love where everything made sense? The connection was real, the look didn't lie, the conversations lasted for hours. But even so, he couldn't choose you. Not for lack of love, not because you weren't special enough, but because something invisible, something deeper than any feeling, prevented him from taking the next step. Today you will understand a truth that few speak. Love is not always enough for a choice to happen. There are hidden psychological forces that sabotage relationships before they even begin. And the most disturbing? He may be feeling all this for you right now, but still not be able to choose you. Carl Jung revealed that we carry inner shadows, unresolved fears, and unconscious patterns that control our love decisions. In this video, you'll discover the 7 psychological reasons why he can't choose you, even when he really loves you. 1. The shadow of abandonment. There is an invisible mark that some men carry since childhood. A wound so deep that it has shaped the way they see love. It is that hidden part of the personality that holds everything that has been rejected, denied, or too painful to be faced. And for many men, this part has a specific name: abandonment. Perhaps the father left too soon. Perhaps the mother was always absent, physically present but emotionally distant. Perhaps he was pushed aside by someone he loved deeply. What matters is that a scar remained, and that scar doesn't heal simply because he's grown up or because he's found someone special. Abandonment leaves a silent and cruel conviction. Everyone leaves eventually. So when he meets you and feels like he's really falling in love, something inside him sets off an alarm. The closer it gets, the more vulnerable it becomes. And vulnerability, for those who have already been abandoned, is synonymous with danger. His mind begins to create protection strategies without him realizing it. He can start to move away just at times when the connection is most intense. It can create fights out of nowhere or find faults where there are none. It's not because he doesn't love you, it's because his unconscious is trying to avoid the pain he already knows. If he leaves you first, or if he never gives himself completely, at least he won't feel the devastation of being abandoned again. That which we do not bring to consciousness appears in our lives as destiny. And that's exactly what happens. This man can't choose you because he's stuck in a pattern he doesn't see. He actively repeats the abandonment, unconsciously recreating the scenario he fears the most. It is a desperate attempt to have control over something that, in the past, was uncontrollable. The most painful thing is that you can be the most present, most dedicated, most loving person he has ever met. But none of that matters, because his shadow isn't reacting to who you really are. It is reacting to ghosts of the past. And as long as he doesn't look inside himself and recognize this wound, he will continue to sabotage any chance of being happy by your side. You can't cure his abandonment. You can't prove that you're any different from the people who hurt you, because this is not a rational question. It is an internal war that only he can win, if he ever decides to face it. 2. The fear of losing identity. When he met you, something in him awoke. For the first time in a long time, he felt like being with someone real. But along with that urge came a deep, silent fear. The fear of disappearing. To stop being who he is, of completely losing yourself within a relationship. Each person has to walk a path to become whole, to discover who they really are. And many men are still in the middle of this journey. They are still trying to understand their own desires, their limits, their dreams. And the idea of giving yourself to someone seems like a direct threat to that process. He looks at relationships around him and sees men who have lost their hobbies, their friendships, their ambitions. He sees men who have become shadows of themselves, who live only for the sake of their partner, and that terrifies him. Not because he doesn't want to be with you, but because he's afraid that by choosing you, he'll have to give up himself. This fear is even more intense when he realizes how important you are to him. The more he connects with you, the more he feels that he is at risk. It's as if there's an inner voice saying, if you give yourself to this, you're going to lose everything you've built. It will stop being you. She will become just someone's boyfriend, her husband, her accessory. And the worst thing is that many times he doesn't know how to communicate this. Then he walks away. It creates distance, make excuses about needing space or not being ready. But deep down, what he's saying is, I'm afraid of losing myself in you. I'm afraid that loving you means giving up who I am. Maintaining individuality within a relationship is fundamental. Two whole people form a healthy relationship, while two desperate halves create dependency. And perhaps, unconsciously, he knows it. Perhaps he feels that he is not yet whole enough to give himself without getting lost. The problem is that this logic ends up becoming a trap. He gets stuck in the idea that he needs to be completely ready before he can allow himself to love. But the truth is that no one is completely ready, and while he waits for a perfect version of himself, he misses the chance to build something real with you. You can be the most independent, most understanding, most balanced woman in the world. You can respect his space, encourage his dreams, never ask him to change, but none of this will calm his fear, because this fear is not about you. It's about the internal war between the desire to connect and the terror of dissolving. If this message stirred something deep within you, and you're ready to understand why certain connections feel impossible to resist, discover the Jung Method. The link is pinned in the first comment. 3. The mother's wound. There is one relationship that shapes all the others in a man's life, the relationship with his mother. This dynamic profoundly influences how someone loves, chooses, and relates. And many men carry deep wounds from that relationship, wounds that contaminate all their future bonds. Maybe his mother was overprotective, controlling, suffocating. Maybe she invaded every space in his life, made decisions for him, made him feel unable to exist without her approval. Or maybe it was the opposite, cold, distant, too critical, never satisfied with anything he did. In both cases, a mark remained. When he meets you, his unconscious begins to make dangerous associations. If you show too much affection, you can trigger in him the fear of being suffocated again. If you have strong opinions or make legitimate demands, you can activate the feeling of being controlled. And if you are too independent or don't show a need for it, you can wake up the old wound of never being enough. It is as if there is a distorted lens through which he sees all women. He's not seeing you. He sees his mother. And this creates devastating emotional confusion because the feelings he has for you are mixed with old hurts that have nothing to do with who you really are. The cruelest thing is that he may even realize that he is being unfair. You can rationally recognize that you are not like his mother, but emotion is stronger than reason. Every time you get too close, something inside him screams, "Danger," and he retreats. Not because it doesn't love you, but because love awakens ghosts that it doesn't know how to face. There is also another side to this wound. Some men idealize the mother figure so much that no real woman can compete. They unconsciously seek someone who takes care of them in the same way, who anticipates their needs, who is patient endlessly. And when you, being a real and imperfect person, don't live up to that fantasy, he gets frustrated and moves away. As long as a man does not resolve his relationship with his mother, symbolically, emotionally, psychologically, he is trapped, stuck in patterns that will sabotage all your relationships. And you may be the most amazing woman in the world, but you can't compete with a decades-long wound. You can't heal something that was formed long before you existed in his life. That's one of the most painful reasons why he can't choose you. Because choosing you would require him to face the inner mother that still lives inside him. It would require him to look at hurts, unmet expectations, anger or emotional dependence that has never been resolved. And this work is frightening. It's easier to run away from you than to dive into this pain. 4. The conflict between being and ought to be. Within every man there is a silent battle. On the one hand, there is who he really is, his true desires, his vulnerabilities, his secret dreams. On the other side is the image of what he thinks he should be, the strong, successful, confident man who never fails, never hesitates, never shows weakness. The social mask we use to fit into the world can become so heavy, so rigid, that we no longer even know who we are underneath it. Many men live trying to be the idealized version that society, family, friends expect of them. And this consumes an absurd amount of energy. When he meets you and feels something real, this battle intensifies. Because being with you would require him to take off his mask. It would require him to show the real man, the one who is afraid, who doubts, who sometimes doesn't know what to do, and he just doesn't feel ready for it. Or worse, he does not feel worthy of being loved, being who he really is. He may be at a point in life where everything revolves around proving something. Prove to the father that he is capable. Prove to friends that he is desirable. Prove to yourself that it is enough. And a real relationship feels like a dangerous distraction from this self-image project. How will he conquer the world if he is vulnerable by your side? How will you maintain the image of an unattainable man if you are in love? The process of becoming who we really are requires the courage to let go of external expectations. But this is terrifying. Because it means disappointing people, breaking with established roles, accepting parts of yourself that have been rejected all your life. And many men are simply not ready for such a break. So it keeps you at arm's length. Not because he doesn't love you, but because truly loving you would require honesty. It would require him to admit his insecurities, his doubts, his moments of weakness. And he still believes that if you do, you'll leave. That is only worthy of love, as long as it keeps the perfect mask. The most tragic thing is that you've probably seen the real man. She has already caught glimpses of him in the deep conversations of the early morning, in the moments when his guard has dropped. And you love that man, but he can't believe it, because he learned from an early age that to be real is to be insufficient. This internal conflict creates a paralysis. He wants to be with you, but that would mean letting go of the persona he's carefully constructed. It would mean choosing to be instead of seeming. And as long as he doesn't have the courage to make that choice, he will remain in prison. You're going to keep sabotaging the possibility of something true because you're too busy trying to be someone you're not. You can't resolve this conflict by him. It cannot convince you that it is enough to be real. Because this is a journey that only he can make. And until he decides to face himself, until he has the courage to take off his mask, he can't choose you. Because to choose you is to choose the truth, and the truth is frightening. 5. When he loves fantasy, often we're not loving the real person in front of us. We're loving a projection, an unconscious image that we throw over it, made up of unfulfilled desires, old needs, and fantasies about what love should look like. When he met you, he may have projected onto you the ideal woman who lived in his head, the one that will save him from loneliness, that will fill all the voids, that will make his life finally make sense. And for a while, you lived up to that fantasy, because in the beginning, he only saw what he wanted to see. But as time goes by, reality begins to appear. You have your own opinions that don't always match theirs. You have needs that he didn't expect. You are human, complex, contradictory, just as any real person should be. And that's when it all falls apart. Because he wasn't prepared to love a real person. He wanted the costume. And when he realizes that you are not that perfect projection. Instead of adjusting expectations and getting to know who you really are, he is disappointed. He walks away. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you committed the crime of being human. The internal image of the feminine that every man carries within himself may not be well developed. When he hasn't done the work of separating fantasy from reality, he gets stuck in a cycle. He falls in love with the projection, is disappointed with reality, and leaves. And he repeats this endlessly, always looking for someone who finally corresponds to the impossible fantasy. The problem is that you can be amazing, but you're never going to be the fantasy, because fantasy does not exist. It is an internal construction of his, made of idealizations, unresolved needs, and unrealistic expectations. And as long as he doesn't realize this, he will continue to look for someone who doesn't exist. There is something even more painful in this dynamic. Sometimes he realizes that he is idealizing. He realizes that he is being unfair. But instead of doing the inner work of dealing with it, it just abandons you, because it is easier to leave than to deconstruct the fantasy. It's easier to believe that the right person is still out there waiting than to accept that the problem is inside them. To mature is to learn to love the real, not the idealized. But many men never get to that point. They get stuck in the eternal search for the perfect projection, jumping from relationship to relationship, always disappointed, always believing that the next one will be different. And you stand there knowing that he has feelings for you, but unable to compete with a fantasy. Because how do you compete with something that doesn't exist? How do you show your value to someone who isn't even really seeing you? You can't, and it's not your responsibility to do that. Because the job of separating fantasy from reality is his, and until he does that, he can't choose anyone real. Not you, not anyone else. 6. Unconscious guilt. There is a kind of guilt that doesn't make sense rationally, but it's powerful enough to destroy any chance of happiness. Many people carry unconscious guilt, feelings that they don't deserve to be happy, that something in them is fundamentally wrong, that any joy needs to be punished. Perhaps he comes from a family where happiness was seen as selfish, where showing joy meant being insensitive to the suffering of others. Perhaps he has survived situations where others have not, and now carries survivor guilt. Or perhaps he has made mistakes in the past that, although already forgiven by others, he has never forgiven in himself. When he meets you and realizes that he can be happy by your side, this unconscious guilt awakens. It's like there's an inner voice saying, you don't deserve this, you don't deserve to be loved, you don't deserve this peace. And the closer he gets to happiness, the stronger that voice becomes, until he sabotages everything. The cruelest thing is that this happens totally unconsciously. He doesn't wake up thinking, I'm going to destroy this relationship because I feel guilty. Guilt acts in the shadows. It creates self-destructive behaviors, makes him look for fights, invent problems where there are none, find reasons to leave. And he sincerely believes that these reasons are real. As long as we do not bring something to consciousness, it controls our life from the outside, as destiny, and that's exactly what happens with unconscious guilt. This man keeps repeating the pattern of walking away every time he gets too close to happiness, and even he doesn't understand why. You can try to show him how much he deserves to be loved. You can list all his qualities, all the value he has, but it won't work, because guilt is not rational. It is buried deep in layers of the mind, mixed with ancient beliefs about who he is and what he deserves. You can be the best thing that ever happened in his life. It can offer exactly what he always said he wanted. But as long as he carries this unconscious guilt, he will not be able to receive it. You won't be able to accept that you deserve to be loved, and he will continue to find ways to punish himself, to walk away, to prove to himself that he was right all along, that he doesn't deserve to be happy. That's one of the most invisible and most devastating reasons why he can't choose you. Because there is an internal force working against you, a force that he doesn't even know exists. And until he goes to therapy, until he brings that guilt to light and understands where it comes from, he will keep repeating the cycle. It will continue to distance itself from anyone who offers the real possibility of happiness. 7. The time that has not yet come. There is a deep understanding of psychological time. There are right times for every transformation, for every change, for every important decision. And forcing something before the right time is useless. The mind has its own rhythm, its own wisdom about when it's ready to take the next step. The hard part is that you're ready. You have arrived in your time. You've done the inner work. You're emotionally available, you know what you want, and it's devastating to realize that he's not in the same place. That as much as the feelings are real, his psychological time does not coincide with yours. The process of becoming who we really are happens throughout life, and each person has their own pace. Some men reach their 30s while still emotionally adolescent, others at 20 already have an impressive maturity. It's not about chronological age, it's about how many layers of themselves they've had the courage to explore. Sometimes he even try to force yourself to live up to what you could have. But it doesn't work, because emotional growth doesn't happen by force of will. It happens when the mind is mature enough to integrate new experiences, new levels of intimacy, new responsibilities. We must respect the time of the soul. And this goes for both you and him. Perhaps the learning here is precisely about accepting that some things do not depend only on wanting. That love, no matter how strong, is not enough if the internal time is not aligned. Psychological time is mysterious. Sometimes, the same person who couldn't choose you today, in a few years will be completely different. Other times, decades go by and she remains in the same place, repeating the same patterns, stuck in the same wounds. The only certainty is this: you can't do this job for him. You can't speed up his internal time. You can't force maturation. And while you wait, you need to ask yourself, am I not paralyzing my own time for the sake of its time? Am I not postponing my own happiness, hoping that he will achieve his? Because in the end, everyone has their own path. And sometimes, loving someone means accepting that the paths don't meet at the time you'd like. It means having the courage to move forward, even without all the answers, even without the ending you imagined, because your time matters too. And he can't stop because of someone who hasn't reached his yet.